Nothing you build up stays. Everything you build up falls apart. Everything you create is destroyed. Everything you love, you lose. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with any of those things. It means depending on them is not reasonable. It's not beneficial. It doesn't help you. It's not a good long-term game plan. So, how that relates to why I relate that here is because we can say, well, next week we'll get it perfect. And so, okay, this will be perfect, but then something else will come out. Because you can't, nothing is stable. You can't build things up to be always this way. So, and more, when you think you can, when we fall into this trap of finding stability, of permanence, of contentment and control, and it creates a habit, it creates an illusion in the mind, and so you're caught off guard when things change. So thank you everyone for coming. It's quite a surprise. I thought Bonita would come because she said she would, but it's kind of answering the question on the short term anyway. Will people actually come out here? I'm not sure. I have to see how long the novelty of it lasts. I have to keep coming up with new things to say. So keep you coming back. First, something I wanted to talk about and wanted to find the right sort of, this is the right time to say it, to talk about the things that we need to keep our community alive and functioning well. So we don't really have a community yet, as far as people staying here. There's just the two of us right now. But there are lots more people coming. It's something for us to think about in advance. There's these things the Buddha called the Saraniya Dhamma, which are the Dhammas that lead us to think of each other, or lead us to be in each other's thoughts. So to lead us to want to commune together, you might say. Maybe Saraniya has to do with the word commune, in the sense of communicate. Because Saraniya means Dhammas that make you want to think of each other. But it's a colloquial usage. The meaning is that lead us to commune, or to be communal, lead to communal harmony. That's the meaning. There are 6 of them. The first 3 are metta, that we should do things. Our bodily actions should be ones out of love for each other, out of friendship for each other, friendliness. So we should act in such a way as to create communal harmony, helping each other, as the Buddha said, when there's things to be done, helping each other do them. When you see someone else has something to do, to ask if you can help and to get involved. And the second one is speech that is friendly. So not just our actions, but our speech should be not designed to create conflict. Our speech should be designed to create friendship and to create harmony. And even our thoughts, we should, when we're alone and thinking of other people, we should be quick to discard thoughts that are unfriendly and cultivate friendliness. So these 3 are body, speech, and mind are the 3 doors, and it's one of those core teachings of the Buddha that he uses in many different contexts. But one of them is here in talking about how to maintain communal harmony in terms of cultivating friendliness, metta. So even in our thought, I mean, this is normally we think of metta as something you do when you're alone and you send love to all beings, or when we sit in meditation. But it's actually something that should be cultivated throughout our lives, It's a protection for our practice on the path to become enlightened. If we're unfriendly and we create disharmony, and of course, it obviously makes problems for us. But so it's not a subtle or a esoteric teaching, but easy to lose sight of it nonetheless. Even though we know these things, it's always good to have these reminders. This is something that we should always think of. Another way you could translate Saraniya means Dhammas that you should think of. You should not forget these ones, because if we forget these things, they'll lead us to. They'll lead to tension, quarreling in the sangha. I always tell this story. It's instructive. There was this in the Kosambi, I think was the place. These monks in a large monastery, and there were two teachers. One of them was teaching the Vinaya, the discipline for the monks, or what are the rules that they have to keep, and so on. The other one was teaching the Sutta, which is the Buddha's teaching on meditation, and like this sutta that we just recited. And so they had, when you study the suttas, you get a different kind of feeling for things than when you study the Vinaya, the discipline. And so the disciplined monk, he was always on the watch for people breaking the rules. And one time he was going to the washroom, and the sutta monk, the monk who taught the suttas, was coming out of the washroom, and he saw that he had left some water in a dish in the bathroom, in the washroom. And he said, "You left water in the washroom." And he said, "Oh," and he said, "Yeah, that's an offense, And the other monk says, "Oh, well, then let me confess it to you, because you have to do it when you commit an offense. It's not like you go to jail or something. You just as a kind of a ritual to reaffirm that you're not going to do it again. You have to confess it. You say, okay, well then let me do the confession." Kind of like Catholicism, no? But you just find a monk and you confess, "I did this," and so on. And he says, but if you didn't, the Vinaya monk says, but if you didn't mean to, or if you didn't realize it or something, there was some stipulation that if X, then it's not an offense. And he says, "Oh, well then all right," and he walks away. And then the Vinaya monk, I guess he's the culprit here. He goes back to his students, and he's teaching them. I guess probably he was giving a class, and he gives us an example. The Sutta monk, for example, still has an offense that he hasn't confessed. And his students heard this, and they went and told the Sutta monk students, "Your teacher still has an unconfessed offense." They told the teacher, and the teacher said, "He's a liar." And they went back and told his students that our teacher said, "Your teacher's a liar." And immediately there was a schism, or not immediately, but gradually, there was step by step, there was a schism, and the monastery split into two parts. And not only did the monks split up, but the lay people who were supporting the monastery split into two factions. And the angels who were guarding the monastery split into two factions. And they split into two factions all the way in the whole, maybe it was all the way up to the Brahma world, the God realms, I don't know. And the Buddha tried to bring reason to them, and they told the Buddha to keep out of it, basically. And so the Buddha went away and stayed in the forest. But these kind of things happen, not maybe to that extent, but certainly I've been in places where this sort of thing happens. It's easy for one thing to lead to another, and so thinking about these things and trying our best to... This is why in Vinaya, the Vinaya is interesting to read. People think, it's just a bunch of rules, but no, there's a whole detailed list of practices designed to rectify a schism in the sangha. Where, you look at the other faction and you think, who in the other faction, who in the opposing faction would be most likely to listen to me? And you go and find that person, and you go and say, look, can we talk about this? So many things. The lay people are like instructed to how does it go? There's so many things about not not giving, be careful not to give to the wrong person, anything to instigate the schism, anything to create more, to put more fuel on the fire. These are the practices that we should think of if we have friendliness in our minds and we think, what is really important here. And most important, if we remember that people are human. One of the worst things that you find in monasteries is we expect everyone to be enlightened. And that's the killer. That's the biggest killer. You can't accept faults in other people. These people are corrupt, they're not really practicing, they're doing this wrong, they're doing that wrong. Without seeing the long-term picture that they have, that no one in this world is entirely evil. Even Devadatta was the Buddha's cousin who tried to kill him. The Buddha, didn't. Is it recording? Yeah. Even you're playing with it, no? Okay, just leave it, dude. Meditate. Well, we missed yesterday morning's TED Talk wasn't recorded. So. You have to tell me, if it doesn't get recorded, just say it's not recording and then we can start again. But this is recording, so we'll cut that part out. No, we won't.
Part of Samsara.
Part of Samsara, you see? Reality television, that's what we're living really. We're living in reality television. This is this because on the one hand, being reborn is wonderful. Having eternity to figure things out is just so liberating in and of itself. I took a Buddhism course in university with some friends who were Catholic. And one of them came up to me after one of the classes and said, "It's amazing, this idea, just this unheard of concept that you get a second chance." And not just a second chance, you have eternity to figure things out. You can't get a better deal than that. If you look at all the religions as like deals, what's the best thing, what's the best thing there is to offer? The best is this is a great thing. And this is what I mean by television, you see, because there's no game over. It's not really a problem. Have you ever read these books by what's his name? The Bach guy, Jonathan Livingston Seagull? You know these books? Richard Bach, that's his name. He wrote one called I don't remember what it was. Illusions, I think, was one. And he meets this master who just tells him that everything is, you can do whatever you want, he said. And it actually is not a Buddhist philosophy. His philosophy is not Buddhist philosophy, but he's on the right sort of track, that really it doesn't matter. Of course it would matter if you think there is only one chance, and what if we're wrong and the Christian God is waiting to decide whether we go to heaven or hell for eternity. Well, then there's a problem. But having studied and examined reality and come to see that, well, it doesn't seem to be that way. It seems to be continuing. It seems that experience continues, and people who have out-of-body experiences, people who have near-death experiences, who see that, well, there's something more than just this one life. Yeah, what that is, we don't know. But anyway, the idea of, it seems more likely that there is eternity than there is some finite limit to the universe. Because anything, well, then what's after that? Right? So once you get this idea of having eternity, you really can't fail. Oh, that's something that is really Buddhist. Is if you ever saw that movie Groundhog Day. You didn't see it. Groundhog Day. Bill Murray. Excellent movie. I think it's very Buddhist. This was way before I was a monk, so I'm allowed to talk about it. I didn't watch it while I was a monk. Every day he wakes up and it's Groundhog Day, because he's a nasty person. He's like Bill Murray at his best, nastiest of the nasty. and he's a newscast. He goes to take news of this groundhog seeing his shadow or not, and he's just a jerk. And then he wakes up and it's Groundhog Day again, and then again and again and again, and he commits suicide and he does everything, and none of it works until finally he becomes a nice guy. This is, actually how reality is. We do have eternity, and we can do what we want. Not in the way that I think was presented in this book, Illusions, but there are qualifiers to this. If you're a mean and nasty person, you don't wake up. Actually, Groundhog Day is problematic there, right? You don't wake up and get a second chance. No, if you're a really bad person, you go down. You eventually have the chance to come back. Is sort of what I'm talking about. You can go to hell. We have this belief, I guess you could say, in hell realms, but it's based completely on the state of a person's mind that leads them there. Some people die, and you think, well, if there is an afterlife, he's not going up. That person is heading there, like the Buddha said. If you see a person walking down a path directly towards a pit full of burning hot embers, you think, well, if that guy doesn't stop, there's no destination for them except that pit full of burning hot embers. In that way, you can be a pretty good judge that if there's an afterlife, that person's not going up. That kind of thing. And if they are going up, I want to go down. Anyway, but where they are. So these three are, anyway, talking about the Saraniya Dhamma. These are a means of cultivating harmony in the community, so that we don't have to wander on. Anyway, got a little bit off track there. The other three are sort of additional, but things that we should consider. The fourth one is that we share things. So as a community, when things come into the monastery, we make sure that everyone gets a portion. This is particularly, the explanation of it is designed for monks. When a monk goes in the village on alms round, he should come back and should share it with the other monks if they didn't get anything. They should think like that, think of sharing first. Mahasi Sayadaw goes into some detail about this one, not exactly this one, but this concept, that if someone really wants to cultivate the perfection of generosity as a monk, then when they go out on alms round, they have to give, they should give all of their food to the old monks, to the monks in the monastery who aren't able to go out on alms round or weren't able to get enough food to eat, and then go out again for himself. And do that, and go out a second time and do that until they get enough food for everyone else. This kind of sacrifice. He talks about the various extremes that people can go to with this, in terms of kind of like self-abnegation or self-sacrifice for the purpose of cultivating a perfection, becoming a Buddha, for example. But sharing is obviously, not keeping things to yourself, not creating jealousy, making sure that everyone is taken care of. It's how society works. So why is there crime? Buddhism is maybe a little bit simplistic, but it's obviously one of the main causes is poverty. There's this nice story about how in ancient times the kings, one of the suttas, in ancient times the kings they were kings, and they would reign by the Dhamma. So they would rule by the Dhamma, which means they would be righteous. They would take care of everyone in the country, and they would distribute alms to anyone who was poor. If there were crippled or disabled people, everyone would get. So they were socialists, basically. They would take care of everyone. Everyone was well taken care of. As a result, there were no problems there was no unrest in the cities. And this went on for some time until... what would happen is when the king got old, when he saw his first gray hair, He would go off into the forest and live as an ascetic. And his son, I mean, it is patriarchal, I guess. Maybe they were female, but anyway, the story is patriarchal. Go off in the forest, and his son would come up as king, and then would go to the forest and ask his father, what's the correct way to be a good king? And the king would, the ex-king, the old king, would explain to him, this, do like this, don't do this, don't. And he would listen, and he would go back, and he would carry on the tradition. And this went on for generation to generation after generation, until one king went off, and his son comes up, and his son says, "Why should I go see my father? I'll do what I want. I know how to rule." He broke the tradition. And because of breaking that tradition, he didn't distribute alms, he didn't think about the poor people. And so the story, it's a really interesting story. Someone steals something, and so they bring him before the king, and he says, is it true that you stole? Yes. Why did you steal? Well, I have no food to eat. Oh, we'll give this man some food. And, this is not addressing the problem. This is a band-aid. So give the man some food. The man, happy, he goes and tells his friends, yeah, I stole and they gave me some food. Really? So they go out and steal. I've got no food, I'll go out and steal. Come back. Did you steal? Did you steal? Yes. Why did you steal? Because I don't have any food. I don't have any food. This is going to be a problem. Kill this man. This will stop people. So he killed one man. Another person steals. Bring him in. Okay. Did you steal? No. He lies. And then another one comes. Did you steal? No. I saw him steal. Witness. Off with his head, kill him. Okay, look, when we steal from people, we're going to have to kill as well. So then when they stole, they would kill the people that they stole from. And you see how it gets worse and worse. This is how this sutta goes. The Buddha is telling a story of the past. So then they would be armed robbers. And so people would carry swords as well to protect themselves. This is what we see in America, right? You need guns to protect yourself from the robbers. Oh, it's gotten to that point. These are danger signs. So this is what we're seeing. For example, I shouldn't talk about this country or that country, but what we're seeing in the world now is these kind of things coming up, where danger signs. First one is poverty, and then you see theft and crime. Eventually, people are so afraid of crime that they start carrying weapons themselves. This is a bad sign that things have gotten quite bad. So, on a micro scale, in the monastery, in the Buddhist community, this is very important. That we take care of each other. And also another thing might be to be content with what we have. It doesn't mention it in here, but a good way, the opposite side is if someone does start, if someone does get something and doesn't share it or so on, is to be content and to be comfortable. But actually what I was thinking is, when you don't get enough, when everyone doesn't get enough, so some days maybe food is, there's not quite so much, and everyone gets a little bit, is to be content with that. That's very important as well. Maybe not so much for communal harmony. Anyway, I'm not going to add things to the Buddhist lists, but contentment is important. So the point is you have to share, well, and it makes it easier to share as well when you're content. If you think, well, I've got just enough for me, how can I share it with other people? But they've got nothing, or they've got less. This is quite common. This I've been through. Some places I've been. I get food and have to share it with my meditators, and you always, what you do right away is you think, well, give them the best stuff because I can put up with this crappy food. Give them the best stuff. So I always get things like this. This is you get a feeling for this. This is not. I think it comes naturally to people, especially when you're meditating, to give and to share. Number 4. Number 5 is that we should have morality in line with each other. And this is a bit of a difficulty because monks have one set of morality and lay people have another set of morality. But we can talk about this on a basic level in terms of the 8 precepts, that we're asking everyone who comes here to keep the 8 precepts during the time that they're here. So if you come in the evening, don't bring food and don't eat food, because that's part of the monastic tradition. So if some people come in and they're sitting in the kitchen eating or cooking or whatever, or even eating donuts or whatever, something that they bring, and then the meditators see that, it can create discontent with their meditation. But as far as the community goes, not keeping the rules is an incredible drain on the harmony, a strain on the harmony of the community. When people are are immoral, when we're lying and obviously these bad ones, but even in terms of not keeping the same sort of practice, like if someone is talking a lot. This is what you find in a lot of meditation centers. Someone will sit around talking and engaging everyone else in chatting. That's doubly important in a place like this, because we don't even have our own buildings. In the places I've been, we always give the meditators their own building, usually. Their own little kuti, their own bathroom. Now we have to share the bathroom. If people are not moral and like stealing with each other's toothbrushes, it gets pretty hairy. So morality that is in line, that is unblemished. Everyone keeping morality unblemished, keeping the 8 precepts, keeping monastic rules. This is very important. On another level, in terms of keeping our minds at rest, keeping us from giving rise to jealousy, giving rise to anger, giving rise to arrogance and conceit. This all comes from immorality. Even just not guarding your mind and giving rise to immoral thoughts can lead us to fighting and so on. Because it all comes from a cause. If you're not getting annoyed, and if you don't have this annoyance in your mind, you'll never fight. And number 6 is having views that are in line with each other. So having alignment, harmony of views, harmony of morality and harmony of views. Meaning the same sort of goals and beliefs and practices. Which, at this center, for example, we ask that meditators who come follow the same practice. I mean, I know Lama Jerry does that as well. He has the Anapanasati. So when people come here, because if they're doing different practices, it leads to disharmony. And if someone comes, once had a woman come and start distributing books on Tibetan Buddhism at our Insight Meditation Center, and I said to her, this is rules. This is, maybe there's nothing wrong with it, but this is, I don't even want her distributing books about Theravada Buddhism. We're doing a very specific practice here. So having the same, you have so many. In Thailand, for example, you have 1,000 different meditation centers, and some of them get along really well. Like different traditions get along really well and can actually meet and can talk and so on. But some of them are intentionally divisive and will go around talking bad about other centers, saying this center is like this, and so on. And publicly. So when they give a talk, they'll say, this meditation technique, they think like this, and it's all wrong because of this and this and this. Which is not really the point. I mean, why don't you mind your own business? Why don't you stick to your own thing? So harmony doesn't come from everyone doing the same practice in all centers, but in each center, first of all, doing a single practice, and second of all, sticking to that practice. Don't go sticking your nose in other people's business. I've heard talks in Thailand just trashing, well, not trashing, but saying, they say in a very polite way, but clearly saying, this is wrong. And it's directed towards another meditation tradition. So harmony can exist with different meditation groups, but not in a single monastery. This is the only point. That in one center we practice one meditation technique. As an example, it's not just the meditation technique. The point is that the real point here is actually that people don't have wrong views. So if members of the community start to cultivate wrong views, this creates disharmony. Views are very important. If people start believing in the benefits of sensuality, that sensual pleasure actually is satisfying and does lead to contentment and so on. If people start to get the idea that there's nothing really wrong with a little bit of fighting, and there's nothing wrong with bad deeds or so on. That they think there's nothing wrong with being lazy and so on, getting all sorts of bad ideas. No, but what I was thinking is you get this, I've had this before, where meditators will start reading books. They do a meditation course, and so they're not reading, but then when they finish the course, they start reading books from in Theravada Buddhism, other meditation groups. And of course, these are the ones that trash talk our tradition, right? And so eventually their mind is like, which one's right? I don't know, and they wind up leaving. I've had this before. So that's exactly what the Buddha is talking about, and it happens when people start listening to too many different teachers and getting too many ideas. Because I don't have anything to say about those other traditions. I've discussed them where they talk about our tradition. I absolutely what they're doing is fine, but stop talking trash about. Stop saying it's the only way, and it has to be like this, has to be our way. I don't say it has to be this way. I just say if you're at my center, it has to be this way. You go to their center, that's fine. Do it their way. Maybe it's better. I'm not the Buddha to say. But for communal harmony, you need some cohesion. You need everyone to be marching in step. You have to. It's kind of cultish, I guess. You have to be like a cult. No. Outside information is bad, kind of thing. No, there's one aspect of there that seems probably kind of cultish. But for communal harmony, no, the point is stick to one practice. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. That's all. That should be how it is. That's how it should be. So, that's communal harmony, and that's quite a bit of talking. I think I can stop now. But I did want to talk about the sutta that we discussed, because it should be a good segue into our meditation. How was the sutta? Did it sound beautiful? Uh-oh. You know why? Because this is all about how the ear is on fire. The ear is on fire. The eye is on fire. Everything's on fire. I point this out because the things we're chanting are not just random, and it's not just ritual. We're chanting these things because they're actually very important for our meditation practice. So for most of you, it's not that useful because you're just struggling to get it, or not struggling and just listening. But for me and for the monastic community, it's quite useful for us to remember and think of these things, because I can read the Pali. So the Buddha says the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind are on fire. And sight, sounds, tastes, sight, sounds, smells, tastes, feelings, and thoughts are on fire. And the feelings that arise based on them are also on fire. And they're on fire with two different things. It's on fire with the defilements, with lust, with anger, and with delusion. So what does this mean? It means that, and they're on fire with old age, sickness, death, and so on, suffering. So what this means is that all of our suffering, it's just pointing out that all of our suffering comes from somewhere. It doesn't just arise out of thin air. without seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, and thinking, no suffering would arise. We cultivate first the addiction to certain experiences. Well, suppose we become attached to someone, and so we cling to this person, and then they leave, or they change, or they pass away, and then we suffer. Our suffering is coming from the experiences that we have, and the memories that arise. It can be arising in the mind, or it can be, they were nice to us before, and now they're saying nasty things to us. So we get upset about that, because we expect it to be otherwise. This means the ear is on fire. When we chant and it's beautiful, and then you like the sound of chanting, then when you go out and you hear unpleasant sounds, there arises. So because there arises the desire for the pleasant sounds, there's the aversion towards the unpleasant sounds. It means you're not balanced and not seeing it what it is. It means there's a fire there. Whatever suffering arises in the world, it comes from these things. When we see something we don't like, when we hear something we don't like, we can even become self-righteous about it. This is the moha, a delusion. We think, I don't deserve that, this person's talking trash to me. Which is really a useless statement to make, because, okay, you may not deserve it, but that doesn't really help anything. This is ego, it's self-righteousness. It doesn't help the situation to... Well, some people think it does, I suppose. Standing up for yourself, right? Standing up for yourself is one thing, and in fact, the Buddha recommends it. He says when people... But it's not standing up for yourself. We're misunderstanding the point. Defending yourself is important. When someone says, why did you do this and do this? It's important to say, I didn't do that, if you didn't do it. To be clear what is the truth. But that's a whole different thing from standing up for yourself and getting angry and saying, how dare you, how dare you? Which may be correct, yeah, how dare they, but the anger is creating conflict. You don't win that way. You don't put out the fire by feeding it, by creating more anger, more conflict. So, to the extent that you can defend the truth, that's a good thing. But the anger is, the fire is not helping. It's creating suffering for you, and it's creating conflict. But so much of our suffering could easily be avoided if we just saw these things for what they are. When someone's yelling at you, and here we go again, and you just say hearing, hearing. And so the whole of the input is just what's the word? Falling flat, is not creating anger that whole time. So that when you take your turn to speak, there's no build-up of anger. There's no reactivity. And so your speech it surprises you. I'm explaining because it surprises you. Hearing, you think, well, what's that going to do? And then you do it. And then when you talk to them, you think, wow, I'm calm and I'm rational. I'm not fighting with them anymore. This is the meaning of fire. Because it's on fire with the defilement, the judgment. There's nothing wrong with hearing, no? Hearing is neutral. But when you judge it, when you say that's true, that's false, that's good, that's bad, that's right, then you create suffering, you create conflict. When you know it's just sound, it's just sound. And then you can engage with it as you like. If you want to ignore it, you can ignore it. If you want to respond to it, you can respond to it. The same with sights and sound, sights and smells and tastes and feelings and thoughts, and even pain and aches and so on. Pain is a great one to practice on. When you see it simply as pain and not as good, not as bad, not as a problem, then you're amazed at how much pain you can actually tolerate without becoming upset. So this sutta is quite important, talking about, reminding us about where the fire comes from, where suffering comes from. We don't have to suffer because of the world. We don't have to suffer because of our experiences, because of our interactions with the world around us. We can be above them. We can be free from the fire. That's what it means, and that's what he gets to at the end. He says, "You become," and the key to it is in the second part, is you become bored of it. The translation isn't exactly bored, but that's basically what it means. Is the idea is it's not that you reject the world or you reject anything. You don't even reject the negative states. You don't say, no, bad, anger is bad, no, greed is bad, desire is bad. You just get bored of it. You say, well, this isn't helping me. The best way to overcome addiction is to get bored of it. It's the most sincere way to be free from addiction, to be free from aversion, to be free from conceit and arrogance and so on. It's not to hate yourself. It's not to be upset at yourself. To overcome fear, phobia. It's not to be angry or be upset that you're afraid of things. Just to get bored of it and say, yeesh, I'm not benefiting from this. And how do you see that? Through the meditation. This is why we meditate. To simply see that it's like banging our heads against the wall. You actually see that. You see that this is basically like banging your head against the wall. It's futile. It's an exercise in futility. And so you become bored of it. And when you become bored of it, you let go. When you let go, you're free. When you're free, you say, I'm free. Katang karaniyang, done is what needs to be done. Usitang brahmacharyang, lived is the holy life. There's nothing left to do here. So nothing left to do except meditate in harmony. So we'll try to do a half an hour now of sitting, and then we'll dedicate our merit.